Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for those of you who watched the first one. Um, yeah, I just put it out there just to do something, and here we are. It's been a good response so far. So here's the next one. So this one is about detransitioners. I just wanted to keep it on the same subject for now and just show the biggest reason why there'll be a pushback to this whole trans kid story right now is the proof of detransitioners. So there's at least 25,000 on Reddit. Discord and Reddit. Detransitioners from all different countries around that have been doing this since when it was. There's a girl that I'm going to put a really short clip of coming up. Her name's Chloe Cole. You might have heard of her because she has had been given some mainstream spotlight, let's say, with her story. And she's not alone. There's a lot of others with stories very similar, and there's some stories are similar to each other, and some are, a little bit different. But the main theme with all of them is that they're detransitioners. How they fell into this might not be the same for all, but the fact that so many are coming out of it within a few years, but the damage has been done. I want to point out one thing. Again, this video is no harm or hate to anyone in any LGBTQI, however you identify. No harm or hate. There might be sensitive topics spoken about. But yeah, this is opinion based and just a discussion between friends. Okay. That being said, let me continue. YouTube stuff. So excuse me. So one of the things I do want to mention before we go into any of the detransition stories is some of the damages that are caused from puberty blockers, because they're never actually made for this purpose, and there was no studies done for this purpose. And what happens when they made a mistake, which they've made thousands of mistakes now. One really bad thing that has happened, which has happened with some still current female to male trans, is that the addition of testosterone, takes away the estrogen. So what happens over time is atrophy of the uterus, which is very painful. It's very dangerous, and signs of it are happening within 1 or 2 years. And there's Marcus Dib, really great channel. I would suggest anyone watch that. Great guy, just very level-headed, quite eloquent and articulate, and has really good messages to put forth, and is a female to male trans man. Worth watching, definitely. He's experienced this within a few years. Only a young man, 23 or 21. Been transitioned for I think 3 years. So within 3 years of being at least on hormones, this has happened, and really, really, really young. So, and then you've got Buck Angel, who would be one of the older trans men that we have, and has been trans for over 30 years, and has his own experience of these things happening as well, and no one, giving a warning for this or being a thing, and can be quite dangerous. It actually went into is it septicemia? He went septic anyway. When your blood goes, the poisons go in there. It's not good. You can die. Yeah, septic, I think. Don't quote me. All right. But it's really dangerous. So that's just one thing. There's many other things which are not being spoken about as well, which are irreversible. Because when they're doing these things, they're not thinking about reversing them, and they say, "Oh, there's no damage done. There's no." If that person continues taking all the drugs and doing that whole process for the rest of their life, possibly no damage in some ways, but the genitals and sex organs can be also damaged. That the person is unable to orgasm or have any pleasure during sex, gets underdeveloped if it's a male, starts having puberty blockers from a young age, the penis doesn't develop, and other things can happen if they want to reverse back and find it. So these are all problems that have been happening. But I'm just going to show a short clip of Miss Chloe Cole. So she has started transitioning young, and she's advocating against it now because she's still a young woman, and she's transitioned back to being a young woman, from woman to male to woman, and just how easy it was for her to be put through the system. She's had a double mastectomy, She's had both breasts removed. She had that done, I think it was 15, and happened within about 6 months of the surgeon and having a chat about that and everything. And my whole thing right now is that we just need to slow this whole thing down. There's enough proof out there which doesn't get enough attention to show that this is a mistake. We're making big mistakes that you can't go back and fix. Actually, with a lot of the youth right now. So let's just, any doctor with a sound mind would also be like, well, let's just have a look at the proper science now and use my science brain and my educated thought, and not continue this at a rapid pace, because the thing that they keep saying is, oh, it's saving lives. There's a high risk of trans kids unaliving themselves, and this is just not true. There's a fact of yes, youth, it's gone up, but that's also going to do with mental health, and you can't just say because a child says, this is what I am, I'm trans, then that's their mental health disorder. Don't think about anything else, don't talk about anything else, that's it, they know. What? So okay, let me put this video on for you, and then just have a watch through and meet Miss Chloe Cole. There are much better long-winded discussions that go for hours or more, and I'll put some links in there, so if you have the time and you're willing to watch it, I suggest that you do, because she's a very smart young woman who's been damaged, and really telling people, listen what they've done to me, look what's happened to me, and we need to be doing that and putting more of a spotlight here and saying, look, because within my own experience of some things that happened with me, I have some trans friends who, I'll tell that story a bit later, but just for perspective, this narrative that they're trying to say. So I've had friends from way back when who went through the transition, were post-op, so had the surgery, and now passed unalive. That was a self-path. So, and then I've also had another friend as well during transitioning on hormones, no surgeries were done or anything yet. Also the same thing. I want to say in all three cases, there was other things happening, and there were other mental health issues going on, and the first two, this is from years and years ago, we're talking about years. So the first faux vagina, let's say, I ever saw was maybe 2099, and then my other friend of mine, this was during the 2000s as well, maybe 2006 or 7. So, and then it was my first friend, maybe 12 or 13 years later, and she passed She passed. No one ever would say, "Oh, that's a man" or anything like that. She's very feminine. She passed her whole life. Like even for a woman, it would be hard for them to tell. And then my other friend, she had other issues as well going on, and it was maybe about 2 years after. But she kind of went downhill after she had her surgery, to be fair. And that might not be related with the surgery because, like I said, there's other things as well. But to quickly just say that all trans kids, there's no such thing as trans kids, first of all, that all trans kids are at risk of unaliving themselves. This is ridiculous, and for doctors to be telling parents this is malpractice. It's a misuse of terminology because it's not true. And they need to be backing up where they're getting their sources from. I'll be saying this straight away, first of all. So there's also another article that I need to read out because Tasmania's got some laws going on right now, just like New South Wales, that are trying to take away the rights of the parents when it comes to if you affirming gender for your child. If your child goes to school and says, "I'm this gender," because they've been taught that pretty much, and you don't affirm it, in Tasmania, the government could be able to take over your parental rights in that situation. So I'm going to share with you that article, but first now watch this. All right.
18-year-old. My name is Chloe Cole, and I'm an 18-year-old detransitioner from the Central Valley of California. I started socially transitioning and identifying as transgender when I was 12 years old, and I was fast-tracked onto medicalization at 13, starting with puberty blockers and testosterone, before I went on to get a mastectomy at 15, and I stopped transitioning at 16 when I realized that I had regretted my transition and that it was starting to cause me emotional and also physical harm. People often blame my parents and they say like they should have known better and that I should be suing them right now, but I think they're victims just as much as I am. My parents actually had pushed back on me medically transitioning at first, but the team of the medical professionals that helped me to push me really to transition never presented any other options. They said that the rate of regret is less than 1 or 2%, and they even lied to my parents that I would be at risk of suicide were I not allowed to transition. My medical transition lasted for about 3.5 years, and during that period of time, there was really only one doctor who pushed back on it, and that was the first endocrinologist who I saw in order to get hormones. He told me and my mom that there would be risks for my brain development, but immediately after, I was just referred to another endocrinologist, and after only about 6 months of being diagnosed with dysphoria, I was placed on puberty blockers and then testosterone a month or so after that. I had been sexually assaulted in my 8th grade year, and that prompted me to start hiding that area of my body. I mean, I didn't even recognize it as sexual assault, and I didn't realize how much it really had affected me. But I bought my first binder about a week after that happened. I would work out in this thing. I would go swimming in it even, and I got sick of it pretty quick. I wanted to be free of it, and I wanted to be able to go out without a shirt, without having these things that I didn't want on my chest. And in my sophomore year, that was when I really started to consider surgery, and I brought this up to my my therapist, and I was referred to a gender specialist before being referred to a surgeon. I had been diagnosed with social anxiety and depression, and my mental state was rapidly declining, and my grades were really starting to suffer. And somehow this wasn't considered when I went to surgery. I was 15 years old. It was far too easy for me to go through this. It was only about half a year between being referred to that surgeon and actually going under the knife. After I had to get the stitches taken out and I had to start doing my dressings, that is when reality started to hit. Every single night, after every bath, after every shower, I would have to look down at these huge wounds. I mean, I was told that this would be part of the process, but you don't really understand just how much of a toll it will take on you until you go through it. It's certainly not for kids. No 15-year-old girl should have to go through that. Eventually I started to realize that I missed little things about being a girl. Sometimes when nobody was home, I would put on makeup or wear some of my old girl clothes. But I was ashamed of it. And I never told anybody about it. But I kept struggling with these feelings, and I continued to get worse. I had to eventually drop out of school and go into an alternative program in which I was taking a psychology class. And there was one lesson that was about parenting, maternity, and the development of a child into teenhood. One of the most important parts of the lesson that really stood out to me was breastfeeding and how important physical affection, how that bond is important to the emotional and cognitive development of a child and how they function later in social situations. I mean, before that, I never really thought about being a parent or breastfeeding. During one of the consultations for my surgery, I was told that I would lose my ability to breastfeed, but at this time, this didn't mean anything to me because I didn't know anything about that. I wasn't even thinking about being a parent because I was 15 years old. I had just completed my sophomore year. There was no way that I would have been able to really understand what that meant. It was then that I realized that something beautiful and uniquely female was taken away from me forever. And I was perfectly healthy before that. I was only a kid. I really didn't get any help with detransitioning. I basically just did it all on my own, and I never got any guidance. I stopped taking testosterone cold turkey, and I experienced some complications from that. My gender specialist who referred me to the surgery really was at a loss of what to do with me. And I've talked to my surgeon. I've reported that I regret my surgery and that I'm having complications with it years afterward. And his response was, okay, just put some Vaseline on it. that'll fix things, but it actually temporarily made it worse. And that was really the last straw. I feel like now I can't depend on my healthcare provider or any doctors at all. I don't think the biggest problem with my transition was that I regretted it. What's more damaging was that they lied to me and my parents. They coerced my parents into allowing me to do this. They withheld a lot of information from us. But even then, at the age I was, I just wasn't capable of giving informed consent. And It's seriously affected both my mental and physical health. I'm still recovering to this day. I don't know if I'll be able to conceive a child or safely carry to term, and I certainly won't be able to breastfeed. And the people that did this to me need to be held accountable.
All right, so there you have it. That was Chloe Cole. So that was the shortest kind of introduction I could give to her. She's doing some really great work. That's just one story of many of the detransitioners and the detransitioning that's going on right now. So now that we have, I'm going to put some links. Actually, when I finish talking here, I'm going to put her court testimony. It only goes for about 5 minutes, I think. It's pretty short. It was a lot more recent. And, it just really does hit all of those points on the head and then some. And this is, the court testimony is to bring, there's other detransitioners in this court story as well. Trying to bring some accountability to those who are leading this and allowing this to happen. And again, we can't blame the parents, but it comes to a point now where there's enough information, and we're going to put it out there where parents do need to say, hey, whoa, weigh it up. If your kid at 5 years old, 6, 7, 8, whatever's coming and saying, I want to be a boy or a girl, and the schools are like, oh, well, you've got to do something about that. You got to be like, hey, like what? Like, since when? Let that kid run around, and if it's a girl play with trucks and a boy play with Barbie dolls, who gives a shit? Nobody, no one ever has. This is like a new thing of caring about stuff like that. So I think this video right now today is just to show you, to bring some awareness and show at least one story now of a detransitioner and what this has done to somebody in real time, of this stuff they're trying to push, because there has been a huge increase, influx of trans kids over the past years. I'm going to say pre-COVID, and then media, social media, all of these things have a lot to do with it. Trans kid was not a word ever before, and the claim people want to say, oh, they've always been around, and well, if they've always been around, they haven't been unaliving themselves because not being affirmed their gender. Might have been coming out later in life, or living a double life, or living their life. But it's never been an issue until now. Why is that? That's something you need to ask, And this gender ideology thing, and being more than one gender, or you can choose who you want. This nonsense, this rubbish is another thing which we just need to not give time to, and erase from the conversation straight away. So then we can all start from a solid point that we're dealing with mental health issues of people, and a lot of it is not gender dysphoria. That's not the mental health issue. We're misdiagnosing kids and really fucking up their lives in the process, and our future generations. So here's the her court one. I'm going to watch this, and then I'll leave that one for today, pretty much, with another gem from the NT. We've just got some talent up here that I need to share with you guys, because it can't be all doom and gloom. We also have to have some fun around here. So I'm gonna leave you with a clip, some good old music. Love you guys. Thanks. Bye.
Ms. Scanlon. Ms. Cole, you're next, and you can begin.
Good morning. My name is Chloe Cole, and I am a detransitioner. Another way to put that would be, I used to believe that I was born in the wrong body. and the adults in my life whom I trusted affirmed my belief, and this caused me lifelong, irreversible harm. I speak to you today as a victim of one of the biggest medical scandals in the history of the United States of America. I speak to you in the hope that you will have the courage to bring the scandal to an end and ensure that other vulnerable teenagers, children, and young adults don't go through what I went through. At the age of 12, I began to experience what my medical team would later diagnose as gender dysphoria. I was well into an early puberty, and I was very uncomfortable with the changes that were happening to my body. I was intimidated by male attention, and when I told my parents that I felt like a boy, in retrospect, all I meant was that I hated puberty, that I wanted this newfound sexual attention to go away, that I looked up to my brothers a little bit more than I did to my sisters. I came out as transgender in a letter I sent on the dining room table. My parents were immediately concerned. They felt like they needed to get outside help from medical professionals, but this proved to be a mistake. It immediately set our entire family down a path of ideologically motivated deceit and coercion. The gender specialist I was taken to see told my parents that I needed to be put on puberty-blocking drugs right away. They asked my parents a simple question: would you rather have a dead daughter or a living transgender son? The choice was enough for my parents to let their guard down, and in retrospect, I can't blame them. This was the moment that we all became victims of so-called gender-affirming care. I was fast-tracked onto puberty blockers and then testosterone. The resulting menopausal-like hot flashes made focusing on school impossible. I still get joint pains and weird pops in my back, but they were far worse when I was on the blockers. A month later, when I was 13, I had my first testosterone injection. It's caused permanent changes to my body. My voice will forever be deeper, my jawline sharper, my nose longer, my bone structure permanently masculinized, my Adam's apple more prominent, my fertility unknown. I look in the mirror sometimes and I feel like a monster. I had a double mastectomy at 15. They tested my amputated breast for cancer. And I was cancer-free, of course. I was perfectly healthy. There was nothing wrong with my still developing body or my breasts, other than that, as an insecure teenage girl, I felt awkward about it. After my breasts were taken away from me, the tissue was incinerated. Before I was able to legally drive, I had a huge part of my future womanhood taken from me. I will never be able to breastfeed. I struggle to look at myself in the mirror at times. I still struggle to this day with sexual dysfunction. And I have massive scars across my chest. And the skin grafts that they took of my nipples are weeping fluid today. And they were grafted into a more masculine positioning, they said. After surgery, my grades in school plummeted. Everything that I went through did nothing to address my underlying mental health issues that I had. And my doctors, with their theories on gender, thought that all my problems would go away as soon as I was surgically transformed into something that vaguely resembled a boy. Their theories were wrong. The drugs and surgeries changed my body, but they did not and could not change the basic reality that I am and forever will be a female. When my specialist first told my parents that they could have a dead daughter or a live transgender son, I wasn't suicidal. I was a happy child who struggled because she was different. However, at 16, after my surgery, I did become suicidal. I'm doing better now, but my parents almost got the dead daughter promised to them by my doctors. My doctors had almost created the very nightmare they said they were trying to avoid. So what message do I want to bring to American teenagers and their families? I didn't need to be lied to. I needed compassion. I needed to be loved. I needed to be given therapy to help me work through my issues, not affirm to my delusion that by transforming into a boy, it would solve all my problems. We need to stop telling 12-year-olds that they were born wrong, that they are right to reject their own bodies and feel uncomfortable with their own skin. We need to stop telling children that puberty is an option, that they can choose what kind of puberty they will go through, just so they can choose what clothes to wear or what music to listen to. Puberty is a rite of passage to adulthood, not a disease to be mitigated. Today, I should be at home with my family celebrating my 19th birthday, and instead I'm making a desperate plea to my elected representatives. Learn the lessons from other medical scandals like the opioid crisis, to recognize that doctors are human too, and sometimes they are wrong. My childhood was ruined along with thousands of detransitioners that I know through our networks. This needs to stop. You alone can stop it. Enough children have already been victimized by this barbaric pseudoscience. Please let me be your final warning. Thank you.
Okay, so that was part of the court testimony. She does get interviewed after that, so if you want to watch it, it's good to watch. But yeah, that really does hit home. And first of all, I want to say, anyone that just wants to come at this child for anything that she is stating that's been her life, shame on you. Stop it right now. Because, I mean, you know, even in America, they can't drink alcohol until 21, but they can be given the permission or the consent to remove the breasts and change sex as a teenager. This is ridiculous. This is just the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life, honestly. They can drive at 16, can't drink alcohol until 21, can go to war at 18 in America. Like this, all of these things, anyway, okay. So the travesty is that she got through the medical system and this was allowed to happen. We can never put any blame to this child at all in any way, shape or form. It's the victim. And I want to say this also to the parents, because this is a new thing. And I don't think any parents had, especially back then, had the information, the knowledge, any history to base this new manufactured issue that their child was going through, and manufactured in a way that the child can come up with that as a reason, or it can be indulged as a thing in this gender ideology thing that we're finding ourselves in right now. So I think the parents were just as much victims in this whole thing, and in somewhat the doctors and physicians. Again, doctors are just human beings, but at some stage doctors have to be able to look at the evidence and look at what they've been doing and then see the flaws and find a better way and a better system, and just say, hey, anyway, let kids be kids. There's detransitioners that I'm going to show you later, that people who transitioned as adults and detransitioned. So, you know, and then that can goes with lots of other sometimes other underlying mental health issues, you know, of why these things happen. And I think it's a bigger thing, more so now, during COVID and afterwards, maybe even pre-COVID. People being isolated, on watching social media and different things like that as well. I think people want to find tribes. It's also one of those things that's kind of fashionable now. Like everyone has to have something that makes them different. Mental disorder, or mental disorder is the thing now. Before it was like you're a punk rocker, or you're an emo, or you're a whatever it was, you know, of your time that maybe was a little bit different. Or everyone, you know, there's different cliques and different groups and stuff, and I think this one stands out. Look, you've had Jazz Jennings. I've never really watched that show because it made me sick from the concept of it. Made me sick. So this was one of the most promoted child, from male to female, from like, you know, 5 or 6, 7. It's been had a TV show for a long time. It's quite old now, and I'll get into that one as well, because that's something else that yeah, I never watched it because it disturbed me. The whole concept of it disturbed me, and it became this big reality show. So, you know, you can be famous for being trans. It's trendy. It's cool. You can get all this attention. You can be a celebrity. You can be a star. This documented her life for years, and in very uncomfortable, and I feel so sorry for her in ways that no child should have been exposed publicly to anybody during this private matter, if this was a thing. So I will leave you with that, and I'll leave you with, again, because I'm so kind to you guys, a little Northern Territory gem. Thanks for sticking around and watching, and yeah, doing this thing with me. Love you guys. Cheers. Bye.
Say good day to old Mick Swift. Say good day to the old boy. Say good day to the old boy. Say good day to the old boy. Say good day to the old boy.
I've been cracking since '88. Makes me just a good old boy. I don't need a drink before a show. I don't lie about the size of my whip, 'cause I'm just a good old boy. The real thing, not a toy. I don't beg for cash from a crowd, or dance around like a clown. I don't come to mix and abuse his staff. Just a good old boy. The real thing, not a toy. You'll get the real deal. Well worth the wait. Just a good old boy.
Mix Whips, the biggest and the best.